بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
Okay, the next thing we'll try to understand some overview on the configuration files. The configuration files, as you can see, it is a way you apply the configurations to the devices. Okay, so you can see these are some of the sample screenshots of the configuration files, what you will see. Now, these configuration files need to be defined inside the software. So probably what we are going to do is we do have a master or the server where the software is installed. And depending upon which software you're actually using, you will be creating the configuration files. Like the format will be different in different softwares. Of course, the way you write the coding totally depending upon the software and the language used inside that software. Now, these things refers to the configuration files. And now these configuration files are defined on the master, and then they are being sent to the end devices or the nodes. Okay, so now these configuration files includes a lot of things like whatever the changes you want to apply, like it can be some OSPF configurations, or maybe if you are talking about Cisco, then it can be like routing configurations or applying some ACL or changing some IP addressing, or even it can include some other things like the packages or the upgrades or the image upgrades, whatever you want to do specifically written in that particular language which that particular software understands. And again, these configuration files have different names, like in some softwares we call it as a manifest, like Puppet uses a terminology called manifest. And again, Ansible uses the same name as configuration files or config file. And again, if you're using Chef automation tool, it is called as recipe. So different tools uses different naming, but at the end they all are like the core files or the configuration files where you are going to create on the server and then push those configuration in the form of a file to the end devices. Now, the complexity of writing these configuration files, it totally depends upon what tool you are using. So it totally varies on different automation tools, the complexity, like because every software use their own language, like the Ansible and Salt Stack uses something called YAML. YAML again, it's a kind of easy and human readable, and it is easy to understand and work. And a lot of people prefer this Ansible and Salt Stack because of the configuration files are easy to understand. But whereas if you're using some kind of Puppet or Chef configuration softwares, probably they will be using something called Ruby language. Now, this Ruby language or the configuration files inside this Puppet and Chef are a little bit more complex because of the language used, that is a Ruby here, which is a little bit not user friendly or not or not much human readable compared to this one. Okay, so but again, now the question is like, do you need to configure or create these files from the scratch? Of course you don't need to do that, because most of the time if you go to the specific websites, let's say if you go to a Puppet website, there is something called forge.puppet.com. probably what you have is they do have a pre-configured templates or pre-configured files depending upon the vendor, depending upon the type of the configurations. So what you can do is you can just get those files, like every tool, every software have their own pre-configured templates on their own websites. Now what I can do is I can use that specific template. Let's say I want to make any changes to specific Cisco. Like what I can do is and again, in that Cisco, I want to make changes to the operating system, let's say iOS. Now again, you can download those specific kind of pre-configured files and you can tweak them. You can make some slight changes as per your requirement, and then you can apply back those or use those configuration files back with the software. So that's how it is going to be. So you don't need to really know each and every line of this, but as long as you know that, okay, I need to change the IP here, okay, IP helper address commands I need to change here, and of course the interfaces where you want to apply. So you can see there are readable options, you just replace those options with your requirements. So that is something how you are going to use these configuration files. So basically you don't need to be an expert in creating these files, but at then you also need to know how to visit that particular software website, and if there is any kind of pre-configured template available, you can download or get that and make some changes and use that file back into your production network as per your requirement.